Hey guys, today on JD Cars, we'll be installing an EAG Jeep Wrangler KG11 metal rear bumper with oversized tire carrier and third brake light bracket. So as some of you already know, I have installed a number of EAG products on this vehicle already. As you can see, I've installed the EAG front bumper, which has this awesome winch bar with an LED mount. I want to get a LED mounted up on there. A winch mount, LED fog lights, toe shackles, and a skid plate under there. This is an awesome front bumper. I absolutely love it. I've also installed the EAG stubby metal fender flares. These metal fender flares really give the Jeep an aggressive look and increase its off-road capability. And most recently, I also installed some EAG aluminum inner fender liners, and these are sweet. So today we'll be continuing the EAG build with an EAG metal rear bumper, which also has a tire carrier, which is gonna be coming in handy for the larger tires that I will be getting for the Jeep here. So let's get the Jeep in the garage and start working. Before we get working on the Jeep here, let's unbox this new EAG rear bumper and see what we get in the box. Well packaged in some thick styrofoam here. Opening this up further, you'll see that you have very thick rubber protectors on all the sharp edges to protect it during shipping. So I appreciate that added detail. Pull this thing out of the box. Uh-oh. I don't see a spare tire carrier in here. Not sure where it is. All right, so I just called up Vicious Off-Road, who provided me with this EAG rear bumper. Apparently the tire carrier ships separately in a separate box, and it either didn't leave the warehouse or it might have gotten lost in shipping. We're not entirely sure, but they'll be shipping out a new one. But that's not really a problem. We can still proceed with installing the rear bumper itself, which is pretty much the entirety of the video. Once we get that tire carrier, we can just pop it right on here and we'll be all set to go. So I'll get to showing you the rear bumper in just a second, but I do want to check out what else we receive in the box here. So we have our standard instructions from EAG. EAG always provides very detailed instructions and they're very helpful for the install. We have a smaller white box of mounting hardware here, another small box, probably more hardware. Actually, this may be our shackles because they do include shackles. Yes, these are the nice silver galvanized shackles. I have these on the front bumper as well and I love them. And as you can see, they also include the rubber isolator and these smaller rubber isolators as well, just to protect the bumper and to minimize any noise. We then have a small bracket of sorts here. So we have two powder coated mounting brackets here, and EAG does a great job with their brackets. I love the fact that they weld the nuts to the brackets, which makes the installation that much easier. You simply screw your fastener right in there and you don't have to worry about holding the nut there with a wrench. And finally, we have one more box here. Let's see what we got inside. And in this final box, we have our fifth wheel mount, which is gonna mount up to the tire carrier. As you can see, it is adjustable, so you can loosen up these fasteners here, and you can actually adjust the distance at which your rear tire is mounted to the car, which is very crucial because different wheels are gonna have different back spacing and different offsets, so having this functionality is great. So this KG11 rear bumper fits all Jeep Wranglers 2007 to 2018. It offers full width rear end coverage. It's made from 5/32 inch steel. It has integrated D-ring mounts with a 4.75 ton capacity. The bumper is fully coated in a durable UV resistant textured black powder coat paint job. And we do have an integrated standard 2-inch hitch. Something else really cool about this bumper, which is one of the reasons I bought it, is it has these really cool armor plates mounted up on the back lower edge. This increases the durability, they are replaceable, and I think it gives it a really cool look. So overall, this bumper looks fantastic. I'm really excited to get it installed. So let's jump into the install here. I do want to quickly mention, as I always do, a lift is by no means necessary for this installation, but I will be using my Max Jacks lift today just to better illustrate the process. So first things first, we're going to be removing two 16mm bolts right here. Do the same thing on the other side as well. Now using a 16mm box wrench, we're gonna come in and remove 2 more 16mm bolts, one located right here and another located right here. Now just above the tab which we removed the bolt from, there's another bolt right up above this tab here. We need to remove that one as well as the one on the other side. They're both 16mm. At this point we can now remove the rear bumper. Some people will tell you to remove the 5th wheel here, but we can just open up the rear tailgate and now remove the rear bumper just like so. So at this point, if you'd like to, you can now remove your rear tow hook. I'm going to be removing mine because we are going to have 2 new shackles to tow the vehicle from. We'll also be removing the tow hitch here. So we're just going to pop down our little wiring harness. We'll figure out a solution for that afterwards. Now to remove the tow hitch and the tow hook here, it's just an 18mm socket to do so. So we're now going to take these 2 included brackets and slide them right into the frame here. We'll line it up with these 2 holes here. Do the same on the other side. Now we can grab the new bumper, install it on the car, and we'll fasten it down with these 4 bolts here and the included flat washer and lock washer. So ideally you want 2 people for this, but you can do it on your own. You're gonna lift up the bumper like so, and you wanna get this hole and this hole to line up with the bracket that we just inserted. And then we'll use those 4 included fasteners and tighten them down with an 18mm socket. Alright, that was a little tough on my own, but I got it done. Now we're gonna insert these 2 larger bolts through these 2 holes next to the tow hitch. We're just gonna insert them like so. Same thing over here. And then we'll come around on the back with this large flat washer and lock nut to secure it in place. These are also 18mm. All right, back on the ground here. The rear bumper is fully installed with the exception of the tire carrier, of course, but we can install our shackles. So let's put those on now. Alright, so this thing is looking pretty sweet. As you can see here, Birdie looks a lot more aggressive. I'm glad I'm finally taking care of this. Vicious Off-Road says on their website that you can complete this job in an afternoon or less, and they're absolutely correct. The installation of this bumper is very straightforward, very easy, and it can be done with minimal tools. So we got the rear bumper installed. Unfortunately, I don't have the tire carrier yet, but once I have that, I'll check back in with you. So I'll see you then. Alright guys, we're back, and you'll notice that the Jeep here looks a little bit different. Since the last portion of this video, I've actually lifted the Jeep 4 inches with a Rough Country 4-inch long arm lift kit, and it looks absolutely killer, as you can see here. But not too much about that. That video should already be up prior to this video being posted, and we don't yet have the rear tire carrier installed, but we did finally receive it. Comes in a pretty thin box here, so we're gonna pull that open. Of course, we still do have this bracket that came in the bumper box, as well as the provided instructions here. So let's cut this puppy open and see what it looks like. These are the only 2 things we received in the box here. With the tire carrier, we received the big tire carrier itself here, as well as the silver handle. So I was just pulling this out of the packaging, and wow, this handle, I believe it's CNC'd aluminum here. Beautiful handle. Feels really substantial too. This is like 1.5 inches thick. Gonna bolt right on there and be really solid and beefy. We have 2 rubber washers around the latch part, so when we close this, it's not gonna clank, it's not gonna damage the paint. It's just gonna be a nice, soft, firm fit. And yeah, this should be sweet. And as far as the tire carrier goes, some really beefy metal here, nice solid triangle, really clean welds, and just like all the other EIG products, This is coated in a really nice, durable, UV resistant textured black powder coat paint job. And by the way, this powder coat is extremely durable. I've plowed over a couple small trees with the front bumper, which is protected in the same coating, and it hasn't chipped, scratched, or worn down whatsoever. It's really impressive how strong this powder coating is. And with that being said, let's get the Jeep in here and get going with removing the stock tire carrier. So first step here is to remove the 5th spare tire from the back of the vehicle. Now that we have the rear tire removed, we can open up the tailgate, and we'll need to pull off this little plastic trim right here. Can either do it by hand. Actually, no. We're gonna want to release this clip. So I'm just gonna use a small flathead screwdriver. I should be able to pop this tab out. Oop. All right. Not exactly how it's supposed to go, but you get the idea. Just pop out this plastic trim, set it aside. We want to disconnect the 3rd brake light connector right here. Now come around to the other side of the tailgate here. And we'll need a plastic pry tool to pry off this little rubber grommet here. We want one something like this that can slip around the wire. Come in from underneath here, squeeze that in there, pry her right off, just like that. And we can now pull the connector through as well. Now to remove the stock spare tire carrier and 3rd brake light itself here, we'll need to remove 8 13mm fasteners around the perimeter of the bracket here. The instructions call for a 10mm, but it's actually a 13mm, at least in my case here. Now pull off this little plastic protector here, and we want to grease this up a little bit so that when we slide on the tire carrier, it's already greased up. However, it does in fact have a grease point. Now grab our new spare tire carrier. We're going to slip it right on over. As you can see, mine went on there pretty easily. However, if you are having difficulty getting that on there, you can use a rubber mallet to pound that down into place. Just gonna wipe off this extra grease here. We need to put a cap on the spindle here now and that little grease fitting. And I was checking out the hardware included with the tire carrier here. We have that spindle cap, grease fitting for the top of the spindle, and then 2 bolts, washers, and nuts for the handle here. And I was just checking it out, and these bolts, they don't actually fit through the handle. Not really too sure there what happened. I don't know if these weren't drilled out to the correct size or I was given the wrong hardware potentially. I'll see if I can drill this aluminum out. It's pretty thick, as you can see, so I may have to end up going to the hardware store and grab some new hardware, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. In the meantime, we'll install the spindle cap on the top of the spindle here, and then we can thread in the grease fitting. So this grease fitting is an 11mm, and I would highly recommend tightening it down by hand. If you use an impact, it's likely it'll break. And at this point, it's time to install this bracket onto the carrier arm. I'm not entirely sure what height level I'm gonna want this at. I'll either do the lowest or second to lowest setting here because we don't really have an oversized tire yet, but it's not the end of the world if it's a little high up. So we're just gonna pull off these 4 lock nuts and washers, stick the bolts through, and then reinstall the washers and lock nuts on the other side of the arm. You can now use a 19mm socket and an 18mm box wrench to tighten down the 4 nuts and bolts securing this bracket to the arm. You want to use your 19mm socket on the back side for those nuts, and you want to hold the bolt still with your 18mm box wrench here. Alright, so once you have this bracket bolted on to the arm itself here, the next step is to install that sweet aluminum handle on the end of the arm right here. Now, remember how I said those bolts didn't fit in the handle? Yeah, well, they don't fit in the arm here either, and I was okay with drilling out the handle, but I prefer not to drill out this arm here because I don't want to compromise the powder coating that's currently protecting this metal from corrosion, and I don't want to provoke this area to corrode. So I'm just gonna run to the hardware store really quick and get the proper diameter bolts. All right, just got back from the hardware store. I took my handle with me just so I could size it up properly, obviously. And the first fastener I tried was a 3/8, I believe, and it had a bit of play. It wasn't really the right size, and I didn't want this to be jostling around, rattling. So I ended up getting a 7/16 by 2.5 inch long bolt. It fits most of the way. We're gonna have to use a 7/16 inch drill bit to just barely take off a little bit of material. And although I didn't want to drill this, I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet and take off a little bit of material. Not the end of the world. So I've got my 7/16 inch drill bit here. I'm gonna drill this out as well as the handle. All right, that took 2 seconds. I really hardly took anything off here. I think I just took the powder coating off barely, and then took off a sliver of the aluminum here. And as you can now see, we now have a really nice tight fit with no play. So I also think I nailed the length of this. Stick this through here, and as you can see here, we have just enough extra threads for our washers and lock nut. So we'll take our handle and insert it into the arm here. Take our 7/16 inch bolt, stick it on through here, and we'll secure it on the back side with our washer and lock nut. Just gotta torque these 2 bolts and nuts down, and we're almost finished. So we got our handle mounted up here, and I was just playing with the arm here. And if you lift the arm up, it goes into place perfectly fine, latches down perfectly. However, I was just experimenting here, and if you put any downward weight on it, it gets hung up a little bit early, and I'll show you why. So right underneath the arm here is this little rubber skid plate almost. Try to get my camera to focus. There we go. So as you can see, this little rubber skid plate has an angle to it. It's basically just to help guide this into the correct location. However, because the arm is sagging down just a little bit, it's getting hung up when it hits right here. So I'm gonna pull this off. It just has a couple hex head screws on the bottom. I'm gonna pull it off and grind it down just a little bit so that it doesn't get hung up there. All right, perfect. So I just used this little bench grinder here, took some material off of that block, and it looks like it's gonna work out perfectly. Even when I'm putting downward force on the arm, you can see that it clears. So you can just slam this shut, and it kind of raises up the arm into place there. Seems pretty durable. It's not really getting banged up by doing this, so sweet. So we'll close this in, latch her down. We can now reinstall our spare tire. And as I said earlier, this bracket is adjustable here. So depending on your backspace and the offset of your wheel, this tire carrier will accommodate it. I think what I'm gonna do is pull off these lugs here, get my spare tire on there, and I'll get this spacing set up properly, pull off the wheel, and then tighten these down. So it turns out in my situation, we're actually gonna have the bracket fully pushed in. Leaves me about an inch between the wheel and the arm here. So I'm just gonna tighten these down quickly with an 18mm. And we're all set to reinstall our spare tire here. These included lugs do appear to be metric. It's a 21mm for these lugs. If you don't have a 21mm, you can use a 13/16, but the 21mm is more ideal. And there we are. The installation is now complete. I do want to note that there should have been a third brake light bracket included. It wasn't on the parts list in the directions, but it is advertised and shown in photos on the product page. I'm not entirely sure why that wasn't included, but that third brake light bracket does bolt into these 4 bolts here. I'm not terribly upset about that. I'll just run without a third brake light. It's not the end of the world. But anyways, checking out the tire carrier here, closes fairly easily. You do have to give it a pretty good push there. And then this latch is very substantial, locks in very firmly here. It can't pop up on its own, it locks in. And then to release it, you just pull up, again, pretty hard, and pull the handle out, and then you can access your trunk. And in case you didn't catch earlier, I did go in the second lowest position. I easily could have gotten away with going in the lowest holes, but I kind of like this raised tire look. So here's some rolling shots of the new EAG KG11 rear bumper. right, so that was the new EAG KG11 rear bumper. As you can see, I added on these EAG red isolators. They basically just prevent this shackle from hitting the bumper, making noise, causing any damage. I think the red isolators complement my red control arms very nicely. I did use the rear tire carrier a handful of times, going to go get those rolling shots and taking my camera gear out of the trunk, and I actually like this setup quite a bit. It has a very firm release, so you know it's not going to pop open on the road. Pull it right open here, open your trunk, and access all your goodies. And I do want to note, when closing the arm here, just latch her down, and as you can see, stock rubber bump stops actually line up perfectly with this new EAG oversized tire carrier, so you don't have to worry about causing any damage to your tailgate here. EAG thought it out, and yeah, you're all good to go. I also said earlier that I could have gone with the lowest tire position on that tire carrier, but I kind of like this raised look. Looks pretty cool, offers more clearance off-road. I'll probably do the same thing when I get my oversized 37-inch tires. And as far as the look of the rear bumper itself, I absolutely love these little armor plates that are mounted all over the bumper. They give it a really cool and aggressive look, as well as added protection, of course. Another little feature of this new rear bumper is we actually have this little tailgate here, which you don't really have with your stock Jeep bumper. And when you lift your Jeep, like I've done here, 4 inches, having that little step lower than your trunk is really helpful for getting up into the Jeep should you need to do so, loading anything onto the top, or I don't know, for whatever reason, this is helpful to have. And that also brings me to my next point about the tow hitch here. I run a landscaping business with a friend, and I do use the Jeep here as my tow vehicle when Eddie's not using his truck. And the tow hitch on this EAG rear bumper here worked out perfectly for my needs. And I actually favor this tow hitch over the stock Jeep tow hitch because it's lower and brought out a bit further than the stock one. And when you combine that with being able to raise your spare tire here, you have much more room to work and install your hitch as well as your trailer tongue in this area here. Because with the stock setup, with the stock tire carrier and the stock tow hitch, I actually experienced some issues hooking up my trailer just because there wasn't enough room to latch it down. And with the installation of this new rear bumper, that's no longer a problem. I was towing a pretty big and heavy trailer, and the hitch is holding up just fine. So overall, I have really no complaints at all about this rear bumper. One last thing I'd like to note is that it looks great with these EAG stubby fender flares. I said the same thing in the EAG rock slider video here. I love how the rock sliders and the fender flares here, they seamlessly go together, and the same thing happens with the EAG rear bumper. The stock bumper stuck out a couple inches here, and the new EAG bumper is sunk in right with the body lines, and it gives the Jeep a really nice look from behind. Tires poke out a little bit further, and it also just gives us more off-road capability, less likely to hit things. And yeah, I really don't have anything negative to say about this rear bumper. So as always, I'd like to thank AJ from Vicious Off-Road for making this video possible. Vicious Off-Road has the best pricing on Jeep aftermarket parts because they own EAG. So for example, I don't remember the pricing on the rear bumper here, but you can pick up this front bumper with a winch mount, bull bar, shackles, LED fog lights, and a built-in skid plate. You can pick this up for under 250 bucks, shipped to your door for free. I don't know where else you can find pricing like that. Definitely let me know if you can, but EAG definitely offers some of the highest quality parts at the best pricing possible. So if you're interested, go check out these EAG products at viciousoffroad.com. If you enjoyed this video, please go smash that like button, share it with a fellow Jeeper, and be sure to subscribe for more Jeep content. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time on JD Cars.